Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. Very warm welcome to everyone. I hope all of you are doing absolutely fine. A very warm good morning. I hope your preparation is going right on track. Especially those who are planning to appear this year. I hope you have all looked at the notification. There are a lot of vacancies this year as compared to the last year. So congratulations on that front. I hope all your doubts about your form filling issues have been cleared and you have filled up your form already. Also, to make sure that you do not have any issue in your preparation going forward, as you know, we have a one-on-one counseling session for all of you that you can avail. All that you need to do is look at the description of the video. There you will find a link of a Google form. Give us all the details in the Google form and one of our experts will get in touch with you to help you navigate through all the issues that you're facing in your preparation. Please don't miss this chance. Doesn't matter if you're preparing for this year or 2025 or even beyond that. Do fill up that form to take the help of our expert. There are no charges for that. On that note, let's see what are we here for today. What are we going to discuss from the Hindu newspaper. So these are topics that we have taken up. First, we are going to do a deep dive into Tamil Nadu state's issues with respect to the renewable energy sector. Now, Tamil Nadu very proudly has always been claiming that they were one of the first states to get off the block when it comes to renewable energy, and that is true. Tamil Nadu right now is one of the largest producers of renewable energy in India. The state has been focusing a lot on solar, wind and any other forms of renewable energy. We'll be discussing what is the status of Tamil Nadu right now, how much renewable energy do they produce and where do they rank as compared to the other states. Second article is about a news coming in from American media. There were some news reports from American media and then the American government also supported that. The news that Russia may be building a new anti-satellite weapon and America believes it is targeted against their satellites. So we'll be discussing what exactly do you mean by anti-satellite weapons, how dangerous they are and do they violate any international treaty. Third article is about high risk that pregnant women have in India. India unfortunately still has a very high maternal mortality rate. We'll be discussing what are the issues with that, what is the trend state-wise, are there certain states where women are much more vulnerable as compared to the others. Then from the prelims point of view, the Jnanpith award were announced yesterday. Gulzar and Sanskrit scholar Rambhadracharya have been given the Jnanpith award. We'll be discussing what that award is, what entails along with the award. Then ISRO has successfully launched INSAT 3DS meteorological satellite. We'll be discussing the details of this satellite and also what does ISRO plan to do going forward. And in the end, government has doubled or more than doubled rather the authorized capital of the Food Corporation of India. We'll be discussing how that impacts the working of the Food Corporation of India, the concept of this capital and how will it impact the overall agricultural scenario in India. Let's begin with the first article. So the first article that you see here is with respect to Tamil Nadu. Now please understand something. The Hindu newspaper, usually on Sundays, what they do is at the end of the paper, they do a profile of certain states. So they will give a very long article specifically about certain states. So for example, in today's newspaper, you'll see an article on Tamil Nadu, you might see an article on Andhra Pradesh, sometimes you might see an article on West Bengal, Punjab, about very specific state issues. So today we have taken up this article where the Hindu newspaper has analyzed the status of renewable energy production in the state of Tamil Nadu. Now before we go ahead, let's first understand, in the UPSC examination, there is a very rare chance that the UPSC will specifically ask you about a certain state and the progress made by that state. If you're appearing for that state's PCS examination, then obviously the chances are much higher. But in the UPSC examination, you don't really expect the question to be specifically with respect to Tamil Nadu. So why is it important for you? It's important for you because when you get a question, just generic question on India's renewable energy progress, what are the green initiatives that the government is taking, therein you can actually give example of Tamil Nadu, that this state has been working well or this state can be a model state for the others, and that is why we are reading about this. So again, not that the state specific question will be asked very probably, but yes, it can be a very good example for a generic overall question. So let's see what this article is all about. So they start by saying that Tamil Nadu was one of the first states, one of the pioneers to understand and realize the importance of renewable energy. As back as in 1980s, in 1986, the Tamil Nadu government launched a project that enabled the state to become a major player in generation of green and sustainable energy. Now, look at Tamil Nadu, or imagine the state of Tamil Nadu, and think what are the kinds of renewable energy, or what are the forms of renewable energy that they would be interested in. So there are two that come to your mind. First, wind. If you look at the wind energy in India, the potential of wind energy, usually which is very high in the coastal areas, you will see in Tamil Nadu, potential of wind energy is high. I'll give you an example also. So, for example, if you travel to Tamil Nadu, let's say from Bangalore, you go by road to Tamil Nadu, will cross over and enter the border of Tamil Nadu very quickly. You will see on the highways, on the side of the highway, there are these huge windmills. And these windmills have been installed to generate energy. Not just this, you will see these humongous transport trucks carrying one of the wings of the windmills. So it's an industry that is booming in Tamil Nadu, and this is not just right now. Because the state has been focusing a lot on wind energy production, they have been one of the pioneers in it. Now, in the past decade or so, they have also been focusing a lot on solar. These two form the biggest chunk of the renewable energy production in the state of Tamil Nadu. Now, the state government realized the fact that renewable energy is a new sector. It requires a lot of investment. So you can't just expect the private sector to come in and bring in all the money. So Tamil Nadu itself formed their own organizations within the government. So there was a separate entity created. Non-conventional energy resources department was created in the Tamil Nadu government, and it had an organization called TANGEDCO, that is Tamil Nadu Generation and Distribution Corporation. Now, the idea again was to make sure that we give a push to renewable energy production, invite the private players and bring in their investment as well. Tamil Nadu has a total green energy generation capacity of 34,700 megawatt. Now, this is not the highest in India. Before you make that wrong assumption, let me correct you. This is not the highest in India. I'll discuss in the due course of this article which state tops, but Tamil Nadu is not at the top. Somewhere near the top, but not at the top right now. Now, over 50% of the energy mix in Tamil Nadu. So 50% of the energy that the state can produce, that comes in from renewable energy. And wind, as I said, and solar are the two major ones. And there's a bit of hydro as well that is involved here. But the two major ones where the state has seen a lot of potential and where they're investing most of the money is wind along with solar. A lot of projects have also been launched. There are multiple examples that have been given. Now, you don't have to go into detail of each and every project, but just an example. One of the biggest solar projects in the country is in Tamil Nadu. It is at the Rambhadracharya district. It has been running for 7 years now. It generates about 30 lakh units daily. Now, for this project specifically, the Tamil Nadu government has invited or has teamed up with a private sector player, and I'm sure you all would have heard of this name if I share the name. The name is Adani. So Tamil Nadu government have partnered with the Adani Group, which have played a major role in building of one of the largest solar projects in the entire country. One other interesting thing about Tamil Nadu government has set an even stricter target for themselves as compared to the national average. As you know, national average, nationally, India is aiming to achieve net zero by 2070. Tamil Nadu government, on the other hand, has announced that their own individual target of net zero is 2050. So they will be able to achieve this by 2050. But again, in order to achieve that target, there has to be a lot more investment into this sector. Whenever you launch a new sector, you enter a new field, be it solar, be it wind, be it green hydrogen, all of that initially requires a lot of investment, capital expenditure, and that is where the government has to set an example. This is right now the capacity as we see in wind, solar. Now, in solar as well, there are various ways in which solar energy is produced. You would have seen this in other states as well. One way of producing solar energy would be the government has its own empty land and they set up solar panels there, like Tamil Nadu has also done. Apart from that, what the governments do is they install panels over government buildings. You will see across the country a lot of government buildings. On top of that, you have solar panels. Like you go to Delhi Metro. Now, on top of most of Delhi Metro buildings, you will see some solar panels. And then there are individual rooftop solutions. Individual rooftop solar panels. Now, This means that the government is encouraging individuals that if you have your own house, you have your own terrace, you have some empty space, why don't you set up some solar panels in that? Why don't you just create some electricity out of it? You use it. If you have some extra electricity, we'll also buy it from you. This is how the government has been trying to give a push to the people. Now, out of these two, while the government building one can be done by the government itself, the individual rooftop solar panel has not picked up as much as it should. The reason again is high installation cost. High installation cost. Yes, in the long run, solar will help you reduce your electricity bill, but initially to set up that solar project, you will have to spend considerable amount of money, and this is where a lot of these projects have not picked up. There is one more project that many of you might have heard of. Remember PM Kusum Yojana? Now PM Kusum Yojana was a government, or is a government scheme where the government is encouraging the farmers to switch towards solar pumps. So the pumps that they have, run them with the use of solar energy. If they have some field which is not that fertile and they're not using that field for cultivation, then set up solar power panels. This is the PM Kusum scheme. Now, the problem here is the PM Kusum scheme has not really been adapted by the farmers or adopted by the farmers as much as the government wanted. The reason being, the farmers in most of the states anyways get free electricity. See, the entire reason why you would want to switch to solar is that your electricity bill is high. You think that switching to solar will save you money. But on the other hand, if you had a situation where you are anyways getting free electricity from the government, why would you want to spend all that money and make all these changes and switch to solar? That is why in terms of villages, farmers, you don't see a lot of adoption of the PM Kusum scheme. There are some other states that have done better than Tamil Nadu. There is an example of Gujarat. Gujarat is better than Tamil Nadu in terms of production of wind or solar energy. That's also because the Gujarat government, due to their favorable policies, have been able to attract a lot more private investment as compared to Tamil Nadu. And again, in this field, investment matters a lot because it is a very heavy capital expenditure field going forward in any sector. Now, there is some data from the government side that I would like to share with you. This data is of the government of India's overall progress that we have made in renewable energy. Now, if you see this, that is as current as 31st of January 2024. See the amount of energy that India produces. Again, only renewable energy. Wind, all this is in megawatts. Solar. As you can see in all of this, if you look at all these various forms of renewable energy, the most or the biggest contributor is the solar one. By far the biggest contributor. Then you see wind coming in, and then at a very, very distinct third, we have biomass, cogeneration, etc. But usually, these are the two areas where the government of India finds most of the potential. It is wind and solar. The problem with both, however, is that both of them are very dependent on the area where you are setting them up. You can't just set up solar anywhere. You need to ensure that it has a good sun catchment area. You can't just set up windmills or wind plants anywhere. You have to ensure that there is enough appropriate speed of wind that is present in that area. And that is why it is restricted. And that is why even after all these talks of renewable energy in India, if you look at the numbers, the fact will tell you, even today, over half of energy that India has comes from coal only. We are making progress in renewable energy, but it is slow progress. There is another data that I want to share with you. This is again from the side of the government, where the government, as of 31st Jan 2024, has shared state-wise data of renewable energy production. Now, this might not be legible for you. You might not be able to read it, but when you download the PPT, you will be able to see this. This is a snapshot. It's a state-wise data. How much renewable energy do they produce? So if you actually see, the leader here seems to be Gujarat, doing very, very well. And then there are other states also which produce high energy. Tamil Nadu again, very close. Then we also have states such as Karnataka doing a good job. So again, this data shows you the performance of individual states. Now, if you look at the worldwide view, the numbers that we have for countries, the updated data that we have is only till 2022. So in the year 2022, these were the countries that got the highest production out of their renewable energy. China at the top, followed by US, Brazil, India. So India coming at 4th position right now. The reason why China has been able to do a lot of this is, again, one, investment, and they have been able to spend a lot of money, especially when it comes to solar panels. Right now, wherever solar energy or wherever the countries are trying to import solar panels, they are hugely dependent on China for most of its input. And that's where China has a lead over other countries. But yes, India is doing fairly well. In very near future, we will be able to overtake Brazil. It will take some time for us to go to number 2, but yes, we will overtake Brazil very soon if our efforts towards green hydrogen, towards solar continue on the same speed. This was our first article. The second article for the day is news coming in from USA against Russia. Now, there was a US media report that first leaked the news that Russia might be working on a new anti-satellite weapon. And then there was a statement from the White House as well, means that even the US government has agreed that yes, something like this is happening. Now, this has raised eyebrows around the entire world. Please understand this. First, anti-satellite weapon is not something new. You might remember even India is also working on that. We have our own mission Shakti where India is also working on that. So you can't say that it's a technology which has never been built by anyone. But the point is, the situation where the world is in right now with the Ukraine-Russia crisis, no sign of that ending anytime soon. Russia working on this and most probably giving it nuclear capabilities as well has raised eyebrows. USA believes that this is targeted against their assets in the space, against the satellites that they have, and this is why it is a cause of concern. Now, the other point here is it will be a violation of multiple international treaties. Whenever such kind of weapons are being built, there are multiple treaties that are in place to stop the countries from doing that. Because see, space is a global common. Space is an area where countries around the world have their asset. So if any one of them goes to disrupt asset and it might have a negative impact on the other countries, it then becomes a violation of the international treaties. And we'll go to that as well. There's something called Outer Space Treaty. This is a treaty that prohibits placement of weapons of mass destruction in the Earth's orbit. And this is where it seems that Russia might be violating this treaty as per the US. Sources also say, although Russia has not confirmed it officially, but the sources say that the weapon might be nuclear in nature or the satellite bearing capability would be nuclear powered at least. Now, you all know you can categorize weapons into two types. Either they are themselves nuclear weapons. Let's assume submarines. Either they have nuclear weapons or they are nuclear powered. Nuclear powered basically means a weapon that they shoot doesn't have nuclear or radioactivity. Nuclear powered means the energy source that they require is being given to them with the help of nuclear reaction. So please understand, satellites and the things that you send to space, all those are powered by solar. So you go to space, you still take energy from the sun, and that is how you work. But what happens in this case is when you are dependent on the solar energy, that means you always have to be in the direct line of the sun. When you move in the space and you are in such a place that you are not in direct line with the sun, that means solar will not be able to work. That is where all the countries have been trying to see if they are able to find an alternative to it. So nuclear power basically would mean that you are not always dependent on solar as a source of energy. So there are rumors either it will be nuclear powered or it will have the nuclear weapon itself. But again, Russia itself has not given any confirmation. These are designed to destabilize or destroy satellites. As the name says, it's an anti-satellite weapon. Now again, USA is saying that it is specially designed against them. Now please understand, satellites today are an integral part of our lives. Satellites today have an application in almost every sphere of life. The Google map that you use, GPS, it's working properly because of the satellites. The television that you see, the DTH that comes to your home, it is because of satellites. In a lot of countries, they are using satellite internet right now. Although India is not using satellite internet right now, but in most of the countries, you see companies such as Starlink, etc., now focusing on satellite-based internet. Governments use satellite-based internets. Not just this, urban planning, making sure that we are able to predict problems such as floods, cyclones, etc. All of that is made possible because we have satellites. We can take a look, or we can keep an eye on our border, we can keep an eye who is coming into our country. All that is done with the help of satellites. So if there is a weapon that is specially designed to destroy satellites in the space, then it becomes problematic for not just one country but everyone. And this is where it is a very, very big news, especially for those countries that see Russia as their competitor. This weapon, as per US, violates the Outer Space Treaty. It has article number 8, which says the countries will be liable, or countries will be held liable for damaging any satellite that belongs to any other party. Not just this, there is one more article, article number 9 of the treaty, that talks about countries should refrain from harmful contamination of space. So basically, let's assume that this is a satellite. The missile goes and hits the satellite. Satellite is destroyed. Destroyed means it will break off into smaller pieces. These pieces now will be uncontrollable. These pieces will now be the space debris. How do you now stop these pieces, space debris, from affecting other satellites? That becomes a challenge. So yes, the weapon might be targeted towards one specific satellite, but destroying that satellite would also mean that now you are putting other satellites in danger as well. Has there been any other example of the countries trying to do the same? That means having their weapons tested not at the Earth's surface but in the atmosphere? Yes. The record for that is with the US. See, till in the time of the Cold War, till the Cold War existed, 1990-91, US and Soviet Union, both of them tested a whole lot of weapons. Both of them wanted to make sure that they have better weapons as compared to the other, because you have to be prepared for every eventuality. Thus, in 1962, the US tested something called Starfish Prime. This was a thermonuclear bomb that was detonated 400 kilometers above the ground. This is the largest nuclear test ever conducted in space. The Soviet Union tried to match that. They also had a nuclear explosion about 290 kilometers above the ground. But again, the record for the highest nuclear, or the highest, not nuclear, but highest thermonuclear bomb is 400 kilometers above the ground, that is held by the US. There is no doubt over the fact that there are cause of concerns about how the anti-satellite weapons will affect the world status right now. As I said, these satellites will result in electromagnetic pulse. In the past, these pulses from any impact in the space have been able to negatively impact a lot of infrastructure of the governments. In fact, there is a record of even nuclear stations or civil nuclear stations of the countries being negatively impacted by the electromagnetic pulse that is produced in the space because of such impact of anti-satellite weapons. This Starfish Prime, the example of the US that we took, it knocked out 1/3 of the satellites in the orbit at that time, which again means that even testing a weapon that is far away from the satellite, even then it can actually have a long-term impact on the satellite's capability to give you the amount of information and how exact information will be. There are countries such as China also who would not want to be involved in a conflict, because right now, again, if this is a beginning of a new space war or a space conflict, the countries must realize that in the space there are no borders. On the land there are borders. You can stop a country from entering your country by saying it is my area. In the space, since there are no borders, all the satellites that you see, although they are owned by a specific country, but they are all in the global common. So how do you stop harm from coming to any one of them and the same harm being propagated to other satellites? That has become a challenge for everyone. Now, a couple of important pointers here. The article here mentions Outer Space Treaty, that is something that Russia seems to be violating. OST, there are a few details about OST that you must know. This was a treaty that came up in 1967, as the name suggests. It basically says that the outer space is an area where the country should not try and weaponize. The country should let it be. It talks about liability for damage. It talks about environmental preservation. In fact, that is why the countries now do not have any nuclear testing in space. You would have heard of treaties such as PTBT and CTBT. PTBT is Partial Test Ban Treaty. CTBT is Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. These specifically say no nuclear testing in the outer space. The treaty also says that the outer space should be used for benefit of all and should be free for exploration. Very similar to Antarctica. Very similar to Antarctica, that this area does not belong to any one country. No country can claim sovereignty over this area. It belongs to everyone. It also limits the use of moon and other celestial bodies for peaceful purposes. It forbids any government to claim any celestial resource like moon and planet. They don't belong to anyone. So you can name them. As you know, whenever any space agency, let's say, finds or discovers a new, let's say, asteroid, etc., they don't name them, but you can't claim that this is yours just because you have named them. States are liable for damages that they cause in the space. There are 108 countries that have already become a party to this treaty. India ratified the treaty in 1982. So we are a part of it. I hope all of you know what ratification means. There are two stages of adopting a treaty. First stage is signing. Second stage is ratifying or ratification. Sign means that the government representative went to the UN or wherever the treaty was to be signed, put the signature. That means India has signed the treaty. Ratification is the next step. Ratification means our parliament has passed it. So only when the parliament passes it, only when the parliament votes on it and accept that yes, we accept this treaty, that is called ratification, only then it becomes binding on us. So we have ratified it. Similarly, in the beginning I told you, anti-satellite weapons are not new. India itself is working on one. If you remember a few years back, I still remember clearly, I think 2019 it was, yeah, 2019. The Prime Minister announced that I will be coming live on television at 12 p.m. So all of you should listen. Now everyone's heartbeat was racing because whenever the Prime Minister comes live on television on a specific time, there is usually some big news. So he came in at 12 and then he said that we have successfully tested anti-satellite weapon. No one knew what this is. No one had any idea, but everyone was like, yeah, good, great. I'm sure the Prime Minister is saying it must be something good. So India has also been testing or conducting a lot of tests successfully in this field. As back as in 2019, we unveiled our mission Shakti. It was led by DRDO, where we shot down our own existing satellite in the low Earth orbit to prove that, see, we now have the capability of shooting satellites in the space. We used DRDO's Ballistic Missile Defense Interceptor as kinetic A-SAT satellite. It was traveling about 300 kilometers from Earth. We became the fourth country after US, China and Russia to have an anti-satellite weapon. So please understand, this is not a technology that no one has ever adopted. In fact, Russia itself has had a history of doing these tests, so has the US, so has China and even India as well. The talks are now that Russia might be working on a new weapon that might be even more destructive and that might have nuclear capabilities as well. That is where the eyebrows have been raised. But this is not a new technology. Do remember that part. Next article that we have here brings us to the issues that we have in our society related to health. There is a new report that has come out which says nearly 50% of pregnancies in India are high risk. Now, there are no questions over this data because this data has actually been taken from government's own National Family Health Survey 5. Now, as you know, the government for many years now has been trying to reduce maternal mortality rate. Maternal mortality rate is impacted by a lot of factors. Health of the women, the nutrition, the education also, hygiene, sanitation, all of these factors then a combined will give you the number that what is the probability of a woman dying after or during the birth of a child. Now, for developing countries and least developed countries, this is a big challenge. This is one of the biggest healthcare challenges, including in India. As per this report, it really depends on which state you are living in. Because different states have different numbers, have different data in terms of what are the chances that a women would be at risk during pregnancy. So for example, 24,000 pregnant women were analyzed and about 49.4% of them were at high risk pregnancy. Now this is extremely high. High risk pregnancy in half of them means that you're putting the life of half the women in danger when it comes to their pregnancy. And the interesting trend is, if you look at states in the northeast part of India, the trend was even higher. Meghalaya 67.8, Manipur 66, Mizoram 62. So these three states, as you can see from the northeast, had the highest prevalence of high risk pregnancy. On the other hand, states such as Sikkim, Odisha, Chhattisgarh did considerably better. Now that can be because of multiple factors. As I said earlier, pregnancy or the risk in pregnancy is added up or is derived from a lot of factors. The health status, sanitation, healthcare facilities around you, the education, all of these factors then tell you what is the women mortality rate or maternal mortality rate. Vulnerable section, like poor women, those who had no education, those who don't know what are the risks and how to manage those risks, all these things lead to high maternal mortality rate. Now, there are a few other factors as well. Factors such as, it was found that women who have consecutive births very quickly. For example, a woman, when she gives birth to a child, please understand this, when they give birth to a child, the body of the women needs a lot of time to recover. It's a very draining and very physically hard process to give birth to a child, and that is why it requires a lot of time, multiple months for the women's body to heal properly. In some cases, in some families, due to any reason, they don't wait to now start another pregnancy, and that is what brings women's health even more at risk. When the time interval between last birth and the current conception is less than 18 months, that is a case where women are very much at a risk. If there is not even a gap of 18 months between two kids, the women's health becomes dangerous. Then, if the women has undergone cases such as miscarriage, abortion, stillbirth, or women who have a cesarean or C-section as you call it, in all these cases, you see that women are much more at risk of any health issue during their pregnancy. Now, it also includes factors such as the use of tobacco, alcohol consumption, previous birth, how was that, any children or any women who has given already birth to 5 children, those are also women at a very large risk. Now, again, if you read these indicators, to be true, it's not surprising. Even if I did not tell you anything about this report and I just asked you, which women do you think would be at high risk during pregnancy, you would have said the same thing. Women who are not eating well, who are consuming alcohol or tobacco, same is what the report actually says. The higher the number of children that the women gives birth to, the more risk the women would have in every next pregnancy. Women with more than 5 children were seen in Meghalaya. Short birth spacing of less than 18 years was seen in Andhra Pradesh. Caesarean delivery C-section was seen in Ladakh and Puducherry. Now, again, these are the places where you do not expect very high level of healthcare facilities to be available to you. And understand one more thing. Whenever we read about healthcare issues in India, or whenever you read about health sector issues in India, please understand, all the health sector issues that we are talking about mostly exist in the government sector. And why am I saying this? See, if you are rich, you can afford it, most of the times you will not have any issue in the healthcare sector. I'm not saying that you will be 100% safe, but you also know, when you talk about problems in healthcare sector, not enough doctors, not enough beds, not enough medicines available, all of that is related to mostly the public sector healthcare that you're talking about. In the private sector, if you are able to pay money, if you are able to spend money from your pocket, then the number of issues that you have reduce considerably. And the same is the case here as well. In most of these cases, the women who are at a high risk come from vulnerable section of the society. Those who you expect would avail government healthcare services rather than private healthcare services. So their risk profile increases themselves. Now, there are a lot of issues in mental health care in India. Let me give you some examples. Maternal mortality rate, India was among the top 10 countries responsible for 60% of global maternal death, stillbirths, newborn deaths. So this is again a number that I don't want to use a strong word, but India should not be happy about it. Yes, we are making progress in terms of economy, in terms of GDP, entrepreneurship, jobs, etc. are one end of the spectrum, but the other end of the spectrum is just the basic dignity of a woman to be able to give birth to a healthy child. That's the most basic thing that you can offer to a human being. That you will be able to give birth to a healthy child and you will also remain healthy. If a country can't ensure that, it is something that the country collectively should look into. Because if this is not solved, then collectively we should hang our heads in shame if we are not even able to protect our women while they are giving birth to a child. Then India also accounted for 17% of such deaths, second highest contributor after Nigeria. Not a great list to be a part of. There are issues in antenatal care. Antenatal basically means pre-birth, before birth. So just before the child is born, mothers, especially first-time mothers, have to be taken care of in terms of their nutrition, in terms of their training, in terms of preparing them for what will happen after or during the childbirth. Only 1% of women in India did not attend any ANC during their recent pregnancy. 34.1% of mothers attended only 1, 2 or 3 visits. WHO recommends at least 4 visits. At least 4 visits. And these can include visit to doctors also. For example, if you are pregnant, you would expect to visit doctor multiple times during the pregnancy period, right? During the 9-month period, you visit doctor multiple times, they'll give you some suggestion, they'll give you some medicines or some therapy, etc. But 34 means over 1/3 of women in India only visit the doctor once, twice or thrice during their entire pregnancy. WHO recommends at least 4 visits if not more. Postnatal care means after birth. 16% women in India did not receive any postnatal health checkups, while 22.8% experienced delayed checkup. I have been saying this earlier, I'll repeat this myself once again. Giving birth to a child is a very, very physically draining process. The body requires a lot of time to recover, to get back to normal. And this is where you require patient to be taken care of by health experts, by doctors, and this is also where we are lagging. On the other hand, we also have lack of skilled health providers. Again, when you say lack of skilled health providers, that mainly affects the public health sector. If you have money, you can afford it, go to the A-class private hospitals, no issues at all. Everyone will be there to serve you, they will be in a queue to help you with any issue that you have. It's mostly to do with the public health sector, you don't have enough healthcare providers. 11% of the cases are there where no health skilled worker providers were present at the time of delivery. Imagine, out of 100 children born in India, 11 of them are born when there are absolutely no healthcare workers anywhere around the mother. Imagine the kind of delivery that would be. There has been a decline in maternal mortality rate. However, the decline is, as we saw, very, very slow. We are still amongst one of those countries where we see highest number of maternal mortalities. There are some initiatives that the government has taken. So I would also not like to present only one side of the story. There's another side of the story. It's not that the government is sleeping over it. I'll give you some examples. There are many others that you can find out. We have the National Health Mission that aims to make maternal health care much, much easier. The government is increasingly providing support through Anganwadi and other infrastructure that the government has built. There is a Janani Suraksha Yojana that encourages institutional delivery and not having a delivery at your own home. We also have Pradhan Mantri Matra Vandana Yojana. It provides cash incentive to pregnant and lactating women for their first live birth, so that if women who are working specially have a thought that they will lose out on their salary, income, and they don't want to give birth to a child, it's for them to encourage them to have the birth, and they will be taken care of in terms of cash by the government. This was the third article. These are the 3 articles from the mains examination point of view. Now moving over to what do we have from the prelims examination point of view. First news, the Jnanpith Award were announced. The Jnanpith Award, the 58th one, given to Gulzar and Jagat Guru Rambhadracharya. These are the 2 who will be given. Gulzar, I'm sure all of you will be aware of, famous poet, famous lyricist, even directed a few movies. Rambhadracharya is a very famous Hindu spiritual leader. It is said that he knows about 22 languages, is the writer of over 240 books, including 4 epics as well. These two have been given this award for their immense contribution to literature. As I said, this is the 58th edition of this award. It started in 1965. It is presented by Bharatiya Jnanpith. It was established before our independence in 1944. Those who win the award are given a cash prize of 11 lakh rupees and a statue of Vagdevi and a citation from the side of the academy. Also, this is the second time that the award is given for Sanskrit and the 5th time for Urdu. Now, the award is given mainly to those writers who have contributed a lot either to English or the 22 scheduled languages that we have. As you know, in the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution, we have the 22 languages. Either you have contributed as a writer, author, etc. to these languages or English, you will be chosen for this award. Here are a few details about the two winners. Gulzar, I'm sure all of you are familiar with, won at least 5 Filmfare Awards. He's also a winner of the Oscar Award for his work in Slumdog Millionaire. On the other hand, Rambhadracharya, as I said, speaks 22 languages. He is considered as one of the 4 Jagat Gurus, Ramanandacharyas of Ramanand sect, and he has been holding this position since 1982. Author of many books, mainly in the field of spirituality and religion. Now, few things that you need to know about this award. English, along with 22 other scheduled languages, are covered. It's the highest literary award. Usually, getting an award in English language is very rare, but it has happened. It was in 2019. Amitabh Ghosh became the first English language writer to get this award. And as I said, it's open to only Indian citizens and is given annually. So do remember these details. Only for Indian citizens and is given annually once. Next news from ISRO. ISRO has successfully launched INSAT 3DS satellite using GSLV. Now, rather than the satellite here, actually, ISRO was even happier. If you look at the news release, etc., rather than the satellite specifically, ISRO was happier about the satellite launcher. Now, I'm sure all of you know, ISRO mainly uses PSLV or GSLV launch vehicle. PSLV is Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle and GSLV will be Geosynchronous Satellite Launch Vehicle. Now, Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, PSLV, is something that ISRO has mastered over the years. This is called as a workhorse of ISRO. Very rarely would you see PSLV launch failing. ISRO has mastered this technology. Whenever they send any satellite using PSLV, it's usually a success. But when we use GSLV, it's not a sure shot success. Now, the reason why we use GSLV is able to send much heavier satellites, much longer distances. GSLV is a higher order technology, able to carry heavy load and long distances. Again, the reason why we usually don't use GSLV in ISRO is that we have not been able to master this technology. A lot of its programs and launches have failed. In fact, that is why ISRO cheekily calls it the naughty boy. ISRO calls it the naughty boy because you never know if it will work or not. After this successful launch, ISRO said that naughty boy is now turning into a disciplined boy. So I'm not sure if UPSC will ask you this in terms of ISRO, what is naughty boy, what is disciplined boy. But yes, interesting to know information that this is what ISRO calls naughty boy, and now they are saying with its successful launch, it's turning into a disciplined boy. Now, about this satellite, what exactly is this? It's a meteorological satellite launched from the geostationary orbit. It's a mission that will help us for meteorological purposes, monitoring land, ocean surface, weather forecast, disaster warning, etc. In fact, these are the satellites that have helped India greatly in reducing the mortality when it comes to natural disasters. Not a long time ago, look at the number of people who used to die of cyclones in states such as Odisha, West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh. You would see a lot of people used to die just because we were not able to predict cyclones in advance. Now, with much better capabilities because of ISRO and other technological advancements, we have been able to get our predictions much more spot on, and hardly anyone dies. If they do, it's usually in single figures. And that's why these satellites are extremely, extremely important. These are the objectives of this satellite of ISRO: monitor the surface of the Earth, carry out oceanic observations, provide vertical profile of various meteorological parameters of the atmosphere, give data and also collect data for other platforms, and provide satellite-aided search and rescue operations. Just in case you have to carry out any search operation of a missing vessel in the ocean, you might use the satellite and its data. As I said, this is the naughty boy, as per, and this is different to the GSLV, but as per ISRO, it's now turning into a disciplined boy. Now, the even bigger part of this news is, you all would have read about the NISAR project. It's a joint venture of ISRO and NASA. Now, NISAR stands for NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar Satellite. Now, this is to be launched using GSLV Mark II launch vehicle. Now, a successful use of GSLV gives much more confidence to ISRO now that, okay, we are on the right track. That means that if we use GSLV later on, we would be able to make sure that our satellite launch is successful. So it gives a boost to ISRO also going forward. Here are a few other details about this particular mission. GSLV F-14 is the name of the launch vehicle, that is the rocket that is used. And INSAT 3DS is the name of the satellite. As you know, GSLV is a 3-stage rocket. So basically, PSLV are usually 4-stage. When you say stage, that means the stage of fuel that is used. For example, PSLV, first stage is solid, second stage is liquid, third is solid, and fourth again is liquid. First stage will always be a solid fuel stage only. Please understand, the main difference between solid and liquid fuel is, solid fuel gives you much more thrust, but it is much heavier also. When you make your satellite too heavy, that with the weight of fuel, that means you will not be able to fit in other equipment like camera and research lab, etc. First stage is always solid because you require the most thrust when you're actually trying to evade the Earth's atmosphere. Then is liquid. Liquid is easier to maneuver, but it does not give you that much thrust. Last stage is usually liquid because in the last stage you have to adjust the position and you have to give it the final launch, or you have to give the final position. So PSLV is usually 4-stage, starting with solid. GSLV is 3-stage. Now in the 3-stage of GSLV, the most important one is the third one, cryogenic stage. The reason why cryogenic stage is so important for nations around the world and agencies including ISRO is that cryogenic stage gives you both the great aspects. One, it is liquid, but it gives you a huge thrust. As I said earlier, the difference between liquid and solid is, liquid is lighter but gives you lesser thrust, solid is more thrust but is very heavy. So the best of both worlds are combined when it comes to cryogenic technology. In the cryogenic technology, it's a liquid fuel. That means you do not have to fill in or make it very happy. But on the other hand, it gives you a huge thrust as well. ISRO spent a lot of years in mastering this technology, cryogenic, but we have been able to do that. Because it is still a technology that's evolving, we have not gotten our hands set on that. That is why it is still not 100% certain that all the ISRO's GSLV projects will be successful. PSLV we have already mastered. It does not involve cryogenic technology, but GSLV still remains tricky, and that is why it's extremely important that this project became successful. The last article for today from the prelims point of view is the government doubling or more than doubling the authorized capital of the Food Corporation of India. Now, the Food Corporation of India, extremely important agency. This is the agency that is responsible for procuring agriculture crops, grains, etc. from the farmers, distributing it under different government schemes. This comes in at a time when the farmers, as you know, again are protesting and they want legal guarantee of the MSP. They want it to be written in the law. The government is not in favor of that because it will increase the budget of the government hugely. At this point of time, the government has increased the paid-up capital, meaning that the amount of money available with the Food Corporation of India to undertake its operations has been increased. Now, it is important for multiple reasons, in fact. First, it allows the Food Corporation of India to buy crops at a much larger scale, number one. Secondly, there is one other issue with the FCI that we have to understand. Although we procure a lot of crops, one of the problems that the FCI has is not enough storage space. So FCI, although it still has a lot of godowns, etc., but this is still not enough. They are always looking to build more godowns to make sure that they are able to sustain grains, etc., for a longer time period. So it will allow the FCI, having more capital, will allow them to improve these operations as well. It will allow them to have better storage facility, number one. It will allow them to have better transportation facility as well. Because see, with procurement of these kind of crops, you have to understand they have the probability of going bad if they are not taken care of. The more you keep them in a non-hygienic environment when the storage is not up to the mark, the more are the chances that they will go back. In fact, every single year, a lot of crop is spoiled just because the Food Corporation of India does not have enough storage facility. And that is what the government is trying to put right here by increasing the paid up capital of the Food Corporation of India. It has been increased from 10,000 to 21,000 crore now. As you know, it is a central government nodal agency, mainly to have procurement of food grains at the minimum support price that has been promised to the farmers. It also usually has cash credit. It also takes short-term loans also whenever they have to acquire more food grains or they have to spend more money but they don't have money. So the government is trying to correct that. Rather than forcing the FCI to go to the market, take a loan or be dependent on someone else or delaying the farmer's payment, the government of India wants FCI to have more money. Now, this is also an indirect clue to the farmers. It's an indirect clue to the farmers in the sense that, see, we can't give you a legal guarantee of the MSP. Because giving a legal guarantee for MSP will require the budget subsidy of the government to go up many fold. So that is not going to happen. But the government is saying, see, we are ready to revive the Food Corporation of India. We are ready to give it more money. So it will be able to procure more crops from you. So it's an indirect indication from the government towards the farmers that, see, yes, we understand you have concern, but please don't demand giving legal status to your MSP. Center also provides equity to the MSP to the FCI for working capital. It also creates an integrated IT system to ensure that the procurement, etc., happens at a very fast scale, because again, the more delay that the FCI operations have, more are the chances that the crops will go bad. There are a few things about the Food Corporation of India that you must know. It is a public sector undertaking under the Government of India. It's a statutory body, means it has been set up under an Act of the Parliament, under the Food Corporation Act of 1964. The reason why it was set up was that back then India used to face a lot of famines. We had a food shortage. Remember, after independence, India was highly dependent on US when they started the PL 480 program, under which the US used to supply subsidized food grains to India almost at zero cost, but they were very low quality. Only those food grains were supplied from US to India that were not really acceptable in their own market. So India had this plan that we want to be self-sufficient in our own food grain supply. This is where FCI came into picture. It has a duty to purchase, store, move, distribute all the food grains across the country. These are the objectives of FCI. They give remunerative prices to the farmers as decided by the government in the MSP. They transform crisis management. Whenever there is a shortage of food grains in any part of the country, it is FCI that is usually pushed into action. It ensures food security of the country. It maintains operational buffer stock. India has a huge buffer stock requirement for both wheat and rice. In fact, Indian governments get extremely worried whenever our buffer stock reduces. You would have seen a few months back when the Ukraine-Russia crisis hit, there was a shortage of wheat and rice mainly across the world, in African countries also. India first announced that we will be exporting rice, but India after a few weeks said that we are stopping the export because we want to first increase our own buffer stock. So maintaining a buffer stock to make sure it is good enough for our own population is also responsibility of the FCI. They also provide support to safeguard the interests of the farmers in the long run. All these are responsibilities that the FCI does on a day-to-day basis. This brings us to the end of today's discussion. Here are a couple of practice questions. I would encourage all of you to go ahead and write the answers to these questions. Also, if you still don't know, and I hope all of you do, if you still don't know, the UPSC notification is out with a lot more vacancies as compared to the past few years. So congratulations on that front. Don't delay filling up the form for a long time, because the more you delay, there are more chances you might not get the center of your choice. So if you want, let's say, your center to be your own city, maybe the number of places that the UPSC has reserved in that city are already over, so you will not get the center of your first choice if you don't fill up the form on a priority. So if for nothing else, do fill up the form on priority so that you are able to get the center of your choice. All the very best. Do keep joining us at 10 a.m. for Hindu Newspaper Analysis to get all the good current affairs from the Hindu newspaper. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day ahead. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.